Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 4. On the Journey. On June 20th, we started to move out of Kaunas. The echelon was very long, and all the cars were tightly packed with arrested people. We all crowded around near the two small barred windows. Each small detail of the native country we were leaving behind us pierced our heart. The first stop was Naujoji Vilnia. The door of the car opened a little wider. Shouts of "Water! Water!" could be heard from all corners. Besides the guards, a group of uniformed KGB men was walking in front of the cars. "Muzhikov," thus they called the men, "will have to be removed," we overheard a conversation. We froze. Will they shoot the men? The women and children began to cry and sob. I did not cry. I stood stiffened and dazed. The men also sat rigid and pale. A group of KGB men came up to our car. "Who is the elder of the car?" We all fell silent. I was still standing in the center of the car like a statue. No one answered, since we had no elder in the car. No one had told us up to this point that we needed one. A Jewish man, Finkelsteinus, pulled himself together. He came up to me and said, "Madam, you be our elder. You speak Russian well." And without waiting for my response, he said, "Here's our elder," and pointed to me. "So, you are responsible for order in the car. Let no one dare to leave. Make a list of the travelers, and now go get some water." The door opened even wider, and I, grabbing the pails, jumped out of the car. From all the cars, people escorted by guards were going to get water, carrying whatever receptacles they had. To those cars in which no one had any larger receptacles were issued 5 brigade buckets. This was a sort of privilege. They were larger and held about 12 liters. I brought back a 5-liter tea kettle and an 8-liter pail. As the elder, I distributed the water to everyone. In the end of June, the weather was hot, especially at midday. The cars were without windows, and the tin roofs were heating up like a roasting pan, so that in the car everyone was suffering for thirst, especially the children. Having gotten some water, they all began to drink greedily, even though it was necessary to economize, since we didn't know when we would get some again. In our car, there were no nursing children, only children in diapers. What were women doing with their little ones? It was awful to imagine, since they needed water not only for drinking, but also to wash out the diapers and infant clothes. A commotion arose. Apparently someone tried to protest against these inhuman conditions, since in some cars 40 or more people were jammed in. Voices were heard and strict orders from the KGB. "Oh, look," shouted one Jewish man who had stuck his hand through the bars of the window and was clutching a small mirror in the palm of his hand. I immediately applied that invention also. Men with bundles were climbing out of the car, surrounded by a reinforced number of guards. They were being pushed on the spot into another echelon. "They will be shot," shrieks were heard from everywhere. Women were crowding by the door. "Get back, I'll shoot," shouted the guards angrily. The crying, screaming women stepped back from the guns aimed at them. The doors immediately slammed shut. My hand, with the little mirror in its palm, was trembling. Everyone was crowding around near our small window, stepping on our bedding. Everyone wanted to see what was happening. From one car, Colonel Giedriūnas jumped out. His beautiful wife and small daughters had been with him only 2 days. What fate awaited the men and their families, no one knew, no one foresaw. Only a sharp uneasiness gnawed at our hearts. The men in our car began to get ready feverishly. They were putting the most necessary things into separate bundles. The women were dividing the last reserves of food, from which the men were categorically refusing to take anything, while the women, with woeful crying, were shoving the food into their packs. Suddenly the guards stirred. They closed the doors hurriedly, jumped onto the guard platforms. The train was moving. In our car, the men remained with their families, and so we all breathed easier. Whoever had anything began to snack lightly, and my family, thanks to my dear colleagues from work, had bread, ham, and cheese. June 21st, we are traveling through Belarusia. Having passed Molodetsno, we stopped rather far from the station. From the village, women came running in our direction, fell on their knees, struck their forehead against the ground, and cried, "Oh, dear God, have mercy. Oh, Mother Most Holy, save their souls." Of course, this does not lift our spirits. On the contrary, it brought forth tears, and the unknown filled us with dread. One little woman, having gotten past the guards, ran up to our car and stretched out to us a picture of the Mother of God of the Gates of Dawn, wrapped in a small rag, and also 3 aluminum medals. "May the Holy Mother of the Gates of Dawn save you and protect you." A guard ran up. "What did she give you?" I showed him the small picture. "Throw it down," he ordered me. "I wouldn't think of it," I answered him. He left without opening the car door. Towards evening, we traveled past Minsk. Workers were going home from work, and almost each one was carrying a small loaf of bread. Most of them were breaking the loaves and eating greedily. We simply could not understand why they were going from work carrying bread and why they were breaking it with filthy, oily hands and eating it without anything on it. 20 years after the First World War, bread was still being rationed in the USSR. This we found out later. Once we had passed Minsk, we traveled past impoverished villages. In places, the roofs of the huts were covered with sod. Not a single tree, no greenery, not even domestic animals like pigs, dogs, chickens, which are usually seen around a house, were visible here. Everything seemed empty, desolate. The train stopped in front of one of these villages. No one ran out of the houses to look at the train. A group of officials came up. The guards opened the door wide. We all began to cast glances through the wide opening. "Who is the car's elder?" asked one of the newcomers. He was uniformed. On his sleeve, there were a few red stripes. I introduced myself. "Report. I'm the commandant of the echelon." "I'm not a military person, and I do not know how to report," I answered. He explained that I must say how many people there are in the car. Besides that, how many men, how many women, how many children of both sexes up to the age of 10, and if there are no sick people. Having looked around, I began to count, although I already knew how many and what kind of travelers were in our car. "Fine, we'll check," said the commandant, and a soldier with a rifle climbed in clumsily, and after him the commandant. "Stand up," ordered the soldier. But there was not enough room for everyone to stand up at the same time, since 2/3 of the car was taken up with bedding and a section with piled up bundles. The commandant was counting us by waving his finger and wrote everything down. Having gathered up my courage, I pointed to the nearby village and said to him, "And that is the blooming Belarusia about which our newspapers wrote recently? There's not a tree here, not a flower. It's a dead plain. Oh, what huts! What misery!" Everyone looked at me with fear, but the commandant answered very proudly, "Nonsense, your flowers. If only there is bread." And he got down from the car. Everybody attacked me immediately, especially the Jews, why I was so provoking, because with such statements I could cause trouble for everyone. I apologized and promised to be wiser. Besides, I offered that someone else be the car's elder. They all fell silent since no one wanted that honor. Notes. Naujoji Vilnia, a small town near Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, from which thousands of Lithuanians were deported to Siberia. Muzhikov, a Russian word for men of the lower classes or uneducated farmers or peasants. Molodetsno, a town in Belarusia, the present Belarus. Mother of God of the Gates of Dawn, Lithuanian Aušros Vartai, a famous shrine in Vilnius.